And you, in that article I referenced earlier on, the 5 rules of how government really works. I want to go through. I want to quickly go through those. So first, not even nuclear weapons are taken seriously. So never assume the problem leading the news is taken seriously.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time in 2019, 2020, like really, really, really digging into the situation with nuclear enterprise in Britain. Obviously, most of the things are illegal for me to talk about, but at the core of it is legal to talk about, and it's that over a 20, 30-year period, the country has basically neglected a whole bunch of the core infrastructure at every point, pretty much, of the whole kind of chain for how these weapons are deployed, the whole infrastructure. And they've neglected building what needs to be built, and then they've classified all the cock-ups so highly that it's like not allowed to explain in detail to you like what they all are, right? And this again is this pathological cycle where there's a failure, and then rather than fix the failure, it's all covered up, and then the budgets just get bigger and bigger, and it means actually that it has a ripple effect, which is they basically have to keep stealing money from the conventional budgets inside the MOD to patch up this like unseen, unacknowledged huge disaster of tens and tens and tens of billions of dollars in the nuclear enterprise. And my point there is like everyone sort of thinks, oh well, yeah, they might get that wrong and they might cock that up, but like the most important things, obviously, the system must be really, really focusing on. And my point is that's the wrong way to think about it. Unfortunately, like things have got so bad that it's sort of the other way around. The ministers run around spending stupid amounts of time on trivia that's on the front page of the Sun, whilst actually just systematically neglecting really like the actual core things, like how to do, making sure that nuclear weapons are sorted out. And even since I said that, they've had a couple of like public disasters, right? They had that test in the Atlantic, which went tits up, and the missile just plopped out and sank. They had a nuclear sub that nearly sank off the coast of Scotland. So, some of the rot that I talked about a few years ago is now starting to come out into the open.
J.D. Vance made a pretty interesting comment. He was asked about where does he think will be the first Muslim country to get a nuke, and he said Britain.
Yeah, I didn't see exactly what he said. I saw like third-hand reports of it. Is that he was making a crack there about like the growth of Islam and
he was
and
indeed.
Sadiq or whatever?
Yeah, he was indeed. Very interesting. Second one from your 5 rules of government. Roughly all the most talented people at building things are excluded from our civil service. The politicians you vote for have roughly zero power to hire, fire, or incentivize officials, so they have no real power.
Yeah, so if you think, anybody who's trying to build anything, everyone knows like the single most important thing is for the CEO of whether it's Microsoft or the CEO of a private hospital or whatever, is can you actually build a team, right? Can you hire them? Can you fire them? Can you incentivize them? Can you trade them? And a British government minister has no power to do any of those things with a single civil servant. So you have the ministers are officially responsible to Parliament for what the system does, but they have zero power over the management of the system. So, like nothing in the world that works like that, right? It's like nothing. So we shouldn't be surprised that these things are dysfunctional.
Third, if you think of the most fundamental principles that lie behind the most successful organizations in history, principles like extreme speed and clear responsibility, then our government works almost totally on exactly opposite principles.
Yeah, so like look at Elon. Look at how Elon does SpaceX. Incredible intensity, incredible speed, incredible attempts to like simplify, to cut things out that aren't needed. And if you try and apply those kind of principles inside government, then the whole system reacts like you're a virus and it's an immune system, and it's like got to try and close you down. It fights to stay the way it is. One obvious way in which you see that happening now, right, is with the AI companies. On the one hand, the deep state is trying to talk to the AI companies and interact with them, but the cycles at which the British state or Washington work is just like 10x or 100x slower than the speed at which Sam Altman works, right? Mm-hmm, so Sam Altman is like working on this speed, and then he's trying to interact with Washington. It's just two completely different, two different clock speeds.
I guess that's why you see this sort of lumbering behemoth in terms of legislation that falls behind. You only need to look at the workarounds that people have come up with for states that don't legalize weed to go, oh, well, Delta 8 is now available. Oh, well, Delta 9 is now available. If we just adjust one molecule here, we know that we can get huge runway out of a drug that essentially does the same thing that is the one that's prohibited. And we know it's going to take, they're basically factoring in the satellite delay for legislation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You see that everywhere.
Fourth, the MPs are usually not focused on the election, which is usually far away. They're focused on what they think they need to tell the media today to improve their chances of promotion.
Yeah, so as we discussed earlier on, the theory of democracy is that one of the reasons why why democracy sort of trend towards improving problems is that the MPs want to win the election. But we're now in a situation where that sort of incentive is basically broken, and they actually spend all their time just on this daily news cycle. And once that happens, two fundamental things happen. One, they stop paying attention to actually good government. And two, they stop thinking about the voters and they think about what the editor of the New York Times thinks, or the Laura Koonsberg at the BBC, etc., etc. And that fundamental dynamic is behind why it's so hard to fix all of these things.
Yeah, I think Tony Blair recently described the government as a conspiracy of distraction from what actually matters. And
yeah.
I thought that was so funny. Fifth, the civil service and politicians' top priority is not doing a good job for voters. It's preserving existing power and budgets. If you don't share this priority, you don't get promoted.
Yeah, so if you look after COVID, what's happened basically, like the officials, the people who were proved right and who saved thousands of people's lives have almost entirely 100% gone from public service, often hounded out. The excellent woman who ran the vaccine task force, for example, was trashed all over the media, whereas officials who completely screwed up, did a shocking job, cost many lives, cost huge economic damage, have largely been promoted and often given gongs. The nightmare woman who gave us duff advice after duff advice in February through March, like don't close the borders, masks are counterproductive and don't work, all this kind of crazy shit. She was promoted and put in charge of the new biosecurity agency that was created to replace the complete shit show biosecurity agency that fell apart in COVID, right? So it's like, oh, the entity's supposed to do the job, completely collapsed. We've got to set up a new entity. Who should we put in charge? Oh, the woman who got everything wrong. The person who broke the last one. And that is the system working as intended, right? That absolutely like sums it up.